Okay, so I'm trying to bounce back from having a bad day in the shop, and so we're just going to call this one a potpourri. Okay, everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and so there's just a couple things I've been wanting to talk about that haven't made sense to bring up, and I figured this will be that video. The first one is I continue to love this cordless Wen track saw, but when I bought mine, there was a huge mistake with it, huge error. And we've run through this before. I commented how over the corded saw, I like how they added white markings on the black for the pivoting as well as for the depth. That was a big improvement. Um, we talked about how you have to have both batteries in. It might be nice if you could run it on just one battery, but it has just tons and tons of power on that. And then I have a couple extra batteries because I have a couple Wen 20-volt tools. But here was the problem. Tell me this makes any sense. Uh, hung up. This is the charger that was included with it. Do you see the problem with this? That was kind of immediate. So I'm happy to announce that if you happen to buy this saw now, you're going to get a dual charger. And after finding out that there's a dual charger, I tracked it down and have purchased it. I haven't opened this thing yet, so let's take a look at this together. We know what chargers look like, so feel free to skip ahead, I guess, unless you want to see me fumble with a box, which can be entertaining according to my family. Here we go. One question I had when I looked up the stats on their website, it almost seemed like it wasn't powerful enough to charge the larger battery that we have here. This is not just a 20-volt battery, but it is a 4 milliamp battery. And this charger, as I see on their website, it says, let's see if there's something on the label here. Output 2.3 amps max. USB output. USB. Oh, there are USB ports on it. I didn't even know that. USB outlet or output. That's pretty cool. So I had to dig deep on their website and found out that sure enough, they say this charger will charge these larger batteries. So this is what you get now. I'm not sure about the USB ports. You might want to double check that. But for sure, if you were to buy the saw, you get a dual battery charger. That finally makes sense. Good job, Wen. Another conversation that we had recently with a couple of the guys that are part of the channel members over at mygrowthrings.com was about clamps. I've been in the process of buying a bunch of clamps because I've got a few big projects I have to do. And it's a wide range of clamps that I need. And I wanted to point out that this is one of my favorites, although historically I've not liked the pistol grip style. I started to feel a little bit of arthritis in my hands a few years ago, and I found these to be difficult, especially the old Irwin design. Let me show you something if you didn't know this. Yeah, this is the speed grip style, but notice if you didn't know, that's a Shopsmith on it. That's right. Shopsmith had these made by Irwin years ago. At the time, Irwin was made in Wilmington, Ohio, not too far from Dayton. But anyway, I found these to be a bit difficult for me. That said, I do like the Jorgensens. I find for some reason they move with a little less force on my hand. I like how they release right here on the handle. I like how this pad goes beyond where it's attached and actually gives some support here in this hollow section. So that allows it to grip larger pieces. And for anti-clamping, for reverse clamping, you can simply press a button here. This slides off and can be placed on the other end. But another really cool feature of these is these can be connected to each other. You can connect two clamps let me show you. You take this jaw off and you reverse it. So you take it from here to here, slide it back on and snap it in place. And then you take another one and do the same. And then they have these dual dovetails on the ends of them that allow these two to connect to one another. And now you've got two heads that can clamp in together. So it can essentially roughly double the size of your reach. Of course, you have to double the quantity of your clamps, but I think that's very clever. That said, those are pretty expensive. So that brings us to Harbor Freight. This is one of their newer Bremen tools, and I've been thoroughly impressed with these. Very inexpensive. These are less than $10 if you have a 30% off coupon or 20% off coupon. They're obviously 20 to 30% less than, than full price, and available in several different lengths. Also, this one has a push button here to release and turn this into a spreading clamp. Way down on the food chain at Harbor Freight, you can pick these up for like $3. And you can see they've got a release here. They've got a much shorter pistol grip, so for my hand, that's not quite so comfortable. And you can move this jaw, but to do it, you've got to unscrew this. Now watch this. I got to completely remove this little, I guess we could call it a knob. Are we done? Thank you. Unscrew that, move it over to the other side, and then now we reinsert that and thread it back in. That's crazy talk, but hey, you save some money. And again, these happen to have a little bit of reinforcement down here, so they're able to make that pad a bit taller than they might otherwise have been able to do it. I need a bunch of clamps, and a few of these aren't going to be bad. I imagine I will be reaching for these at some point. And then one more clamp that I got to say I'm impressed with. You've probably seen videos about this already, again, from Harbor Freight. The K body from Bessie has, patents have expired. They redesigned it a bit a few years ago, and since then it's been pretty well knocked off. And you can buy these in a number of brands. Chad last night mentioned that he assumed I'd be buying some of the Wen brand. I might still, but they'd have to go on sale, and they'd have to go on a tremendous sale because I can pick these up 20 to 30% off at Harbor Freight. That makes them the least expensive of this style clamp that I've seen anywhere, half the price typically of what you'll see the Bessie clamps, and they have a lifetime warranty. This and the other blue Bremen clamp. So if I ever have any problem with this, I walk back into Harbor Freight, I hand it to them, and I walk out a minute later. It's really quite smart of them to have done that and to have that kind of policy on some of their tools. But I think $30 would be the retail price on this. I bought it with a 30 off coupon. $30 is, how much? That's $5 more than each of, if you bought a pair of the Wen. So the Wen is $50 for two, $25 a piece. So not only is this less expensive if you get it with a coupon, but yeah, the Wen has a great guarantee, but part of the deal is you got to return it to Chicago if you buy it on Amazon and it fails at some point in the future. So anyway, this is a great deal. Probably going to round out this potpourri with something that I was experiencing the other night, trying to take some measurements off of this Mark V. But as I was doing this and getting prepared, I looked down and noticed how awful this apron's looking. I've had people ask me about this apron. I like everything about it except for the fact that it shows dust instantaneously. We've washed it a few times, and I walk into the shop, and suddenly it's got dust on it. So there is a tan version of this available. It's the exact same apron. I would recommend that for your wood shop. If you were wiping grease and doing some small engine repair, things like that, the black would look great. So let me show you what I was measuring here. So this isn't rocket science, and you probably have this down pat, but being dyslexic, I really struggle taking measurements and then transferring those measurements to other places, other things. One of the questions that folks had asked when I drilled the 2x4s in order to mount my accessories on the shelf that's behind me, how to get this dimension. Well, you want to get from the middle of this hole to the middle of this hole, but thankfully that dimension is the same dimension as from the edge of the hole to the edge of the hole, or from the edge of this hole to the edge here. So if you've got a good ruler, you can just press it against the inside wall of this and then measure over. It turns out it is 7 inches from center to center. All right. The bench tubes are slightly further spread apart than the weigh tubes. I have my machine in the drill press position right now. So to get this dimension, if you're wanting to do something with that, there's a couple numbers floating around on the Shopsmith forums. I've not done enough investigating to know whether this changed from the 1954 model or not. Somebody can correct me in the comments. But what you can do is you can measure at the high point. It's very easy to hit the high spot. If you want to, you can kill an inch, start at the 1 inch mark, and I can see exactly where that 1 inch lines up. I can come over here and it's measuring 9.5, but don't forget I added an inch here. So it's 8.5 inches from the top of this one to the top of this one. Been playing around with something that might mount here, and I needed to cut this piece here exactly the right size to slip on, and I failed at that in part because I was given wrong dimensions initially, and so I had to come back and actually measure it, and that's the way I did it. So both of these measuring tips can come in handy as we measure round parts on this machine. And the last thing I'll mention to you is when drilling for those accessory shelves, hold on. So when drilling the holes through this 2x10 and then through these 2x4s, I wanted to make sure I had the right diameter. And in fact, when I drilled through the shelves, I had the wrong diameter. I was following the original design that was in Popular Science magazine. I found immediately that those holes would be way too sloppy, so I reduced the size and went ahead and drilled my shelf, only to find out that even reduced, it was too large. And so to remind myself here, this is an ancient Harbor Freight set of Forstner bits. This was back when I felt that they made them fairly well. They went through a period where they didn't make them well at all. Now they don't even have Forstner style bits. They have the carbide tipped ones that don't work the same way. But I believe, and we'll just double check here, that the size that I went with ultimately, yes, is 1.25 inches. And 1.25 inches is a great fit. But I want you to see here that 1.25 inches is larger than the holes we have in the end of this base casting. So that means if you put an accessory on here, it fits more accurately. And over here on the shelf, when we take that same accessory and mount it on the shelf, it gives us a little bit of play. So here, we'll drop that in. That's even without locking. That's fairly vertical. And then we bring it over here, and it's easy to drop in place by having it at a slightly larger size. So I have this set dedicated for just beating around the shop. I'll drill plywood and particle and things like that with it because it was very inexpensive. But I've written on the box itself that 1 inch is for the Shopsmith floating tubes on the 510, 520. 1 3/8 inches is for the Shopsmith weigh tubes and bench tubes. So 1 3/8 inches if you wanted to do what I was playing around with. That's also the size that I drilled for the Shopsmith. And I use that also for the diameter on the bottom of my my drum sander, things like that. So um, I'd like to hear your tips. If you have any advice, leave it down in the doobly-doo in the comment section, and look forward to hearing from you. And I hope we recovered this. Make it a great day. And see how we do. I measured something wrong. What did I do wrong? This doesn't shock me entirely, but it disappoints me. I don't math. Dag nabbit.